Hello, everybody, and welcome to our PDIG monthly podcast. This is July, and we have a little special guest with us today. So it's not just Joseph and myself boring you to tears. We also have Alice Linklater coming in with us today. Hey, Al, how you going?
Hello, I'm really good. Thanks for having me. I kind of
So
feel like the
nice.
third wheel, but it's lovely to
No,
be here.
No, we need the distraction, to be honest. Well,
absolutely.
today we've got a bacterial focus. Our condition is pitted keratolysis. The case that we're going to be discussing is swimmer's rash, aka jacuzzi folliculitis, which is not as fun as it sounds. And our product is potassium permanganate. So without further ado, I'm going to handball this hot potato over to Joseph.
Yes. Okay. So bacteria, we are covered in it. Didn't you know? um, yeah. When you guys think pitted keratolysis, what pops into your head?
Sweaty feet.
Yes. Yes, definitely. But
Mm.
I mean, does it conjure up certain imagery of that, for example?
Kind of looks like
Craters.
tiger
Craters.
bread, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
Sorry.
know that I should start this early on with the foot comparisons with food, but there you go.
Yeah. Sorry, Alice, what did you say?
Just the crater-like structure as well.
Mm.
Hyperhidrosis. And it's often sometimes a bit of a pong about it when you get the bromhidrosis component. I'm probably not pronouncing that properly,
No, no, no,
but
no, no, no. You did quite
did I do
well.
okay?
Alice, do you remember the term crumpet foot?
Oh.
No, but I'll never look at a crumpet the same again.
Oh, can we stop with the
What's with the
food analogies,
food?
guys?
Okay,
This is
so
not good.
for those who can't remember, crumpet foot actually was a popularized term during COVID because what we noticed from a podiatric perspective was a number of changes to the skin microbiome. The first change we noticed was that a lot of people went barefoot, and so the rates of chilblains really popped up. We'll do another podcast on chilblains. Although it's funny that we're kind of skipping it over despite the fact that it's winter. And then because a lot of people wore slippers for many, many hours, they developed crumpet foot, which is also known as pitted keratolysis. So essentially, it's a type of bacterial infection, but as Alice mentioned before, it's hyperhidrosis. So the pathophysiology, and please stop me because otherwise I'm just going to keep talking and talking and talking.
No, please do. We need some clout to this.
Okay, so you notice that on the image on the right and on the left, there's a sort of white appearance to it. So that implies there's a hyperhidrosis component. So hyper means excess, hydrosis means sweat. So as I said before, we're covered in bacteria. And so when the native bacteria that's on the foot, in this case, Corynebacterium, sounds nothing like crumpets, actually gets in there and starts to infect the deeper skin structures because the sweat has actually allowed it to have a portal of entry. So we're treating it from multiple angles. So, I mean, Alice, again, trying to pick on you because you're our special guest. When we talk about hyperhidrosis, what sort of things do we need to treat it with? Because we need to treat both the bacteria and the sweat. Is that correct?
That's correct. So obviously the hyperhidrosis is leading to the change of the skin structure. So obviously we need to think about ways of handling or reducing that. Obviously, we can do really small things depending on the extent of it, changing of socks, making sure we're in more natural fibers. And then you can obviously start with potential changes to different topicals that you'll place onto the foot. I don't know if you've had any experience with, I think there's that salicylic acid in what was it, Nicole's topical that she often uses?
Yeah, it's a combination of 3% sal acid and 70% alcohol. She got that from credit to another pod, actually, who came up with that, but Nicole popularized it on our group. Big contributor that she is. And that particular formulation does a couple of things. Well, salicylic acid, we know, is a keratolytic. And so it sort of sounds counterintuitive that pitted keratolysis is literally there are pits because the keratin is breaking down. And so therefore we're going to apply something else to break it down. But it sort of unplugs the dead bits that have been impregnated. And this slide, if you have a look at the one on the left, for those viewers watching us on YouTube, you can see all the debris that's actually been impregnated into the bottom of that foot. And so salicylic acid will unclog that. And the alcohol component will not only have an antibacterial component, but also have an astringent component. Yeah. Steph, it's sweaty where you're from in Queensland.
What are you implying?
I'm just saying that anything's hotter than Melbourne, where Alice and I am.
That's so true. I was actually just about to say, like, we could just do the chilblains episode in summer in Queensland because we all get chilblains from our aircon. So
that's quite interesting. We'll have to look at a seasonal dermatosis kind of thing. Steph,
Yeah.
what do you think about antiperspirants on the foot?
Yeah, see, I've heard of, is it the Dricklaw or like the
Dryclaw.
really extreme one that you kind of roll on and it stops
no longer
you
on the
from
market, but
perspiring
yes.
from there? Well, there you go. This is how, you know, I'm kind of specialized into high risk at the moment, so I'm de-skilling in other areas. But yes, I had sort of heard that it was potentially a topical that could be used. I don't know, you know, are you going to get people rolling deodorant on their feet? Is that going to be an accurate way of dealing with this?
Yeah.
Joseph, do you
Yes.
know how long, if we look at iontophoresis, do you know if it's a long-term option or is that something for a specific amount of time that will work for?
Wonderful question. Alice, if you could just be so kind as to tell the viewers what iontophoresis is before I answer that question.
Basically, you can get these home kits or you can go to places where you stick. I'm going to probably get you to explain the mechanism of it, but basically you stick your foot in something and it sends out little waves and changes.
No, we love that on this podcast. We like
you stick your foot in it and it fixes it.
We like
Correct,
to get
Alice.
to the base level.
No, but that's exactly why I brought Alice on, because, you know,
I can say stick your foot in it and it fixes it.
Alice is 100% right. It is a very, very mild electrical current that travels through water as a medium. And what that does is that basically just stops the sweat glands, the eccrine sweat glands, from over-functioning. So, Alice, your question was, how long does it take to work?
Yeah. And
Well,
also, how long would is it something that they do need to do ongoing to continue to have those effects? Yeah.
So, in short, to answer your first question, how long is a piece of pitted keratolysis? How long does it take? Typically, we're talking 6 to 8 weeks. So it does take a while. Part of the reason for that time frame is because the skin takes roughly that long to turn over. So because this is primarily an epidermal complaint, the epidermis turns over roughly in a 6 to 8 week block. And so then what we do is we tend to taper it down. So we would start with daily for the first 6 weeks. We would reevaluate, and then we'd drop it down to alternate nights until eventually we'd get down to the point where we can do it, you know, 1 night a week. Things get really interesting though with iontophoresis because we don't just have to use water as the treatment medium, but we can also put anti-sweating agents. So Steph, you know how you were talking about really strong antiperspirants. You can chuck in something called glycopyrrolate, which is a very mild kind of neurotoxin that stops sweat from happening. But
that doesn't sound like a great idea to put your feet in a bucket of neurotoxin.
It's very mild. It's very mild. No, I mean, it's
not. Are you going down the homeopathic route that like a tiny bit is fine?
Or are we looking at Botox in terms of neurotoxins?
So I was going to come to that, Alice, and we'll talk about that in just a sec. But I mean, Steph, you
Thank God you're here, Al.
Steph, you make it sound so terrible. Just stick your foot in a bucket of neurotoxin with an electric pulse onto it. I mean, what could go wrong?
What you were suggesting, Joseph. Look, I mean, you're the professional. I'm
trust
just
me.
here to
trust me, I'm a
pot.
doctor. Yeah. So, Alice, have you ever had any patients that have Botoxed their feet?
No, not their feet.
Yeah, that's right. You could always tell a Botox individual when they come in and look surprised, even
when you tell them bad news.
Yes. Steph, have you ever come across a patient that's Botoxed any part of their body for non-cosmetic reasons?
No, but I have heard of people through the grapevine who've done it for like underarm stuff, not
likewise.
feet.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. I think feet are too exquisitely painful, but essentially Botox is another neurotoxin. And because sweat is controlled by nerves, if we can switch off some of those nerves, then we stop sweating. You can, in very extreme cases, do a sympathectomy where you can remove the nerves that cause the sweat. Yeah, I mean, but we've started to digress. I mean, hyperhidrosis does underpin everything. So there are other ways to treat it, which will be our product of choice. But interestingly, one really great way to treat it is actually with acne medication.
Oh, as in Roaccutane because it dries everything out?
Not quite that strong. So Roaccutane's a vitamin A derivative, and that works more on a systemic base. I'm talking more about things like benzoyl peroxide and erythromycin and clindamycin. So benzoyl peroxide is an antibacterial, but it also does a similar job to salicylic acid, which, by the way, is another acne medication, which it unclogs some of the pores. So we're trying to get it from multiple angles. And Steph, which age group do you think you'd see this most commonly in, by the way? Speaking of acne.
I'm thinking teenage boys.
Yeah.
Poor
I've
buggers.
got a few of them, and they certainly don't have this, but
Yeah. Wow.
I see it in a lot of tradies as well. They're often in their work boots for long hours, sweating, obviously hard work. So the moment a tradie comes in, I'm always like, hang on, I know why we're here.
I must admit, I think the only case of this that I've seen was in a abattoir worker. So like wet socks in gumboot sort of style footwear on top of the sweating.
It's I mean, the occupational element is really significant.
Yes. And I would say, like, you're talking about the Queensland element, we probably don't see huge amounts of this, or I don't, because we're in thongs most of the time.
Absolutely. And there is something to be said for wearing minimal footwear to reduce a lot of foot pathologies. But teenage boys in particular, I have seen the holy trinity of foot infections, of which I classify that as pitted keratolysis is the bacteria, tinea pedis or onychomycosis is the fungal, and verruca pedis is the viral. So you do occasionally see it all. And the one thing they all have in common is hyperhidrosis. So generally speaking, if you can control the sweat, and then you can control everything else. The other little tidbit I'll add as well for our podiatrists, because we love to reach for a scalpel, is debridement makes a big difference, because debridement not only reduces the hyperkeratotic component, but it also changes the way the microbiome works. So if we can remove a lot of those and disrupt those bacterial colonies, we can change the healing trajectory of something like this. So yeah, hopefully we've grossed everybody out with that one.
Nice.
What are we talking about next, Steph?
We are jumping from disgusting feet to jacuzzis, and I'll let you make your own link to that. Let's have a chat about jacuzzi folliculitis or swimmer's rash.
Yeah. Are you not a fan of jumping into a sauna or a hot tub, Alice?
I hate it. No.
No way. Little Al, come on.
No deal. Thank you.
Do you think, Alice, that's just a podiatrist thing, that we just don't like to put our feet and bodies in places?
I assess the risk, and it's too far. It's too much for me.
It's like public swimming pools. We know what's in there, and it's not pretty.
Yeah. Interestingly, I had a case of this where a friend, when you've got an interest in healthcare, whether you're a doctor or not, you become, the family/friend doctor. And you can protest as much as you like and say, I just treat feet. And they go, it's fine. It's close enough to the foot and it's like their elbow. So a mate of mine who built his own spa and swore black and blue he had enough chlorine and salt, his kids kept getting this. So, I mean, this is courtesy.
Oh, so not even private spas are safe. Don't do that to me. Oh,
well,
okay.
It's And what do you think the mechanism of this is, guys?
Genuinely don't know.
How do you reckon? And why do you think it's specific for jacuzzis and hot tubs and things like that?
Is it the bubbles?
Is it the heat?
The heat.
I would say Alice is on the money. The other thing as well is people generally don't sit in there for a minute or two. So if they're going to sit in the hot tub, I'm having a massive flashback to the Seinfeld episode where Kramer did everything in the shower. But generally speaking, when you think about how long people spend in the shower compared to what they spend in their spa or their jacuzzi or their hot tub, it's a significant difference. So you've got a combination of bacteria in the water with too much maceration and in it goes. So effectively, it's a very similar pathophysiological pathway as pitted keratolysis.
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's just a different bacteria. And so this produces, the reason it's called folliculitis is because it infects the hair follicles. So the sole of the foot does not have hair follicles, as we know. We don't have hair on the palmo plantar area, but in other
Only if you're
areas,
significantly unlucky.
that's right. But in torso or legged or just hair, well, I mean, we're covered in hair everywhere else, and in goes the bacteria. Yeah, so fun stuff.
Charming.
What do you guys think the treatment for this is, apart from popping the pimples? Because you know your health
Should you
professional.
though? Should you?
Probably not.
But it would be fun.
It's so tiny.
Yeah, it would be fun. What do you guys think would be the best way to treat this?
Is it a topical antibacterial or
Yeah.
a topical antibiotic?
Yeah, or even oral. Yeah. And in some cases, it's difficult to differentiate between this and other forms of folliculitis. You can also get fungal folliculitis to make things just even more interesting.
Is it worthwhile taking a swab, or are you just basing it on visual?
That's a good idea, Al.
Excellent point, Alice. Probably both, and history. I mean, if it's a case of it wasn't there on Monday. On Monday night, I sat in the spa for half an hour, and then on Tuesday morning, this popped up. I think you can
Safely say what it is.
Safely say what it is. But yeah, I mean, have you guys got any tips given the parameters and the pathophysiology of how this occurs? Have you got any tips for how we can prevent this? Maybe
Check your water chemistry.
Don't go to spas.
Don't go to spas.
Or stay in there for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, or even limit it. Even limited. Yeah, I would say.
You guys are killjoys. I'm just going to say it.
It's yeah. Well, don't worry, Steph. We won't touch saunas for this.
You
episode.
only live once, and apparently you get folliculitis multiple times. So,
well, I think. I mean, what's interesting is everyone has a different susceptibility to infection. So, Steph, my theory is that being podiatrists, we're covered in bugs, and we've become immune to every bug that we encounter. So you will be fine. Jacuzzi and sauna away. Nothing will ever happen to you, I promise.
Joseph, every time you say we're covered in bugs, I get this moment of going, I'm going to scratch everywhere,
everything. Okay, gosh. Shall we move on to our product?
Yes, we should. Okay, so one way we can treat both of those dermatoses is with this stuff, potassium permanganate. You can't really see so well because I blurred the background. Alice, what's your experience been with potassium permanganate?
Well, it depends on the concentration. It's sort of an old school remedy that it's not really something that people talk about these days, but Condy's crystals is another way that people will describe it, and it can be.
Ooh, that's
a beautiful color.
Yeah, and
you have to be very careful with it because it can actually dye things and stain. So be very, very careful with it. But have you got a 0.1% or 1% there?
So,
or a different percentage?
No, 0.1. You're quite right, which is 1 in 1,000. So I found that was the sweet spot because when you instruct patients to, put in a little bit, people think more is more, not less is more. And so they often also soak their feet in it. Condy's crystals is the raw form of potassium permanganate, and it comes in literally little granules. It almost looks like purple Himalayan salt. You chuck that in a bucket in some warm water, and then you give the feet a soak for 10 to 15 minutes. But the problem is, if you soak it for that long, I mean, you do kill the bacteria, but you do hyperpigment your skin, because what happens is the permanganate actually starts to oxidize and turn brown. And so it turns the skin and nail tissues brown. But you're right, it is a bit old school, I have to say, but I've had some great results with it. I mean, because it's a liquid, it doesn't last for ages. So you need to give it, sometimes twice a day, but it can be really handy for keratolysis and hyperhidrosis. Can you guys think of anything else you can use it on?
Interdigital maceration, obviously hyperhidrosis, but that's really good for swabbing between compared to methylated spirits, which is quite short acting.
Yeah. Steph, in your high risk foot capacity, do you think this is something that would be of use?
Potentially, but we sort of just give, alco wipes for between the toes. I mean, my patients, maybe 1 in 20 of them can actually reach their feet. So, I mean, it would be okay, but the next time they come in for debridement, if I'm dealing with brown feet and nails, I'm not going to be particularly excited. Oh dear.
Because we know wound care is all about colors.
Oh, yeah.
So
I need to see what I'm debriding. Thank you.
absolutely. So if you are interested in potassium permanganate, pop into your local pharmacy. They're probably the best place to start, whether you're a patient or whether you're a health professional. They have some wonderful products on hand for all of the things that we discussed. And I think that about wraps it up. Any final thoughts?
I'm never looking at tiger bread, crumpets, or spars the same way again. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, Al.
That's right. Hopefully, don't watch this on an empty stomach.
Oh.
Steph, just a reminder: if anyone wants to submit a case or get in touch with us, how can they do that?
Absolutely. You can drop us a comment on YouTube. You can talk to us via Spotify, or you can head on over to PDIG, our Podiatric Dermatology Interest Group, over on Facebook and engage that way.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. Until next time, keep derming and stay away from crumpets. Thanks, everyone.